Okay, so to continue from where we left off with our IO exception demo, I want to go ahead and take a look at yet another way that we can write our try-catch that will be even more concise and also more secure than just relying on this finally to close the file. And the way that I want to do that is using what is known as a try with resources block. So I'm going to go ahead and comment out a couple of lines throughout this program so we can go ahead and modify this, as well as go ahead and keep the current version if you want to be able to look at both with and without this try with resources block. So we're going to go ahead and comment out these two lines where we are initially making our file and scanner related to the file IO. So go ahead and comment those two lines out. We can also go ahead and comment out these two lines where we're actually initializing them. So remove those. And since we're not going to need to use the finally block to close the file anymore, we'll also go ahead and comment that out. So I'm going to remove a couple of things here. And now what I'm going to go ahead and do is whenever we make our try block, we can actually add some parameters to it by setting up a pair of parentheses and then inserting something into it. And the thing that I'm going to put into this is going to be my resource. And this resource is going to be something that we can close later. So similar to how we've talked about exceptions which inherit from the throwable class, if we were to discuss a little bit about files, we could also talk about the closable class. So that's essentially what we need to put here. And the way that it's going to look is we're just going to go ahead and both declare and initialize our scanner that we're going to be using to read from the file. So it looks a lot like the initialization expression from, say, a for loop. It's a pretty good example of that. So we're going to have our scanner. We're going to call it input file. So that much is still going to match what we have from line 11. This is going to equal a new scanner. And what I'm going to go ahead and do here is put into this the object, the file object that I'm going to create without necessarily needing to make a separate variable for that as well. So I'm just going to put new file right inside of there. And then inside of that new file, I need to specify the name of it, which we're getting from the user's input. So we can just put the file name here. Okay. So what's going to happen now is whenever I use this try block, anywhere inside of it where I specify this input file, it's going to be looking at what I just specified as my resource for it, which is going to be this scanner object that's reading from the file that I specified. And the other thing that's really convenient about this is the fact that now, as soon as I'm finished with my entire try catch, regardless of whether or not the entire try block finished or if an exception was caught and we go into the catch block, as soon as all of that code is done, because we specified this as a resource for our try block, it's going to go ahead and close that automatically for us. So this helps to save us the trouble of trying to remember that we're supposed to close it in the first place, and that's what makes it more secure, is that we no longer have to worry about whether or not we forgot to include some line like this at the very end. So if we go ahead and save this, we'll come over here, we'll go ahead and compile it. So say Java, see we need our IO exception right here. And then go ahead and should still have that line as well and run it. So we'll go ahead and enter the name of the file, say hello.txt, and we can still go ahead and open it, read from it, and then it is automatically in the background closing for us. And if we misspell it, say we do something kind of like this, then we'll just get that error from our catch block, and again, it will also automatically close it in the background. And to also be able to demonstrate this is in fact actually closing that file, I want to go ahead and modify this code to demonstrate what happens if we do a write. So we're going to go ahead and modify this. We've got our read right here. We're going to specify the name of the file that we want to, in this case now, it's going to be the file that we want to write to. So whenever we do this right here, instead of setting it up as a scanner to read from the file, I'm going to go ahead and, let's go ahead and actually just comment all this out. I want to add a new one right here. And so for this new one, we're going to do pretty much the same thing. The key difference now is that we're going to use a print writer. So I'm just going to do this with a print writer. We'll just go ahead and overwrite the current contents in the file. In fact, we can just go ahead and delete these contents, and I'll go ahead and rewrite that phrase into the file so we can see that. So say try print writer. So this will be for our output file. So in this case now, because I'm using the print writer instead of the scanner, that's what I'm going to specify here. We'll say this is equal to a new print writer, and we want it to be reading from this, or allowing us to write to this file. So we're going to specify that file name there. And then right here, what we can go ahead and do is then include another print statement asking the user to enter some text that they want to write to that file. Okay, so we'll say something like system.out.print. Say please enter some text to write to the file. And then just after that, we'll go ahead and get our output file. Say .print. And the thing that we're going to print to it, let's actually do is print line. In this case, because we're doing a single line, whether we use print or print line doesn't really make a critical difference. But we'll go ahead and just do print line. And right here, what we're going to do is just grab the next input from the user. So again, we're using that keyboard object to read from the user's input, so from that standard input stream. And just like up here, it's also just going to be the next line. So just the next string of text that they give to us. And then after we do that, we can also go ahead and include a catch block, again, trying to catch any kind of I/O exception. And we'll just include the same statement as before. So we'll have a print statement here. And we'll say, again, invalid file I/O. So that then, if either we can't find the file that we're trying to write to, or if we encounter some kind of error while trying to write to the file, then we can just go ahead and catch the exception and print out invalid file I/O. Okay, so once we've got all this code set up, we'll go ahead and compile and run this. So we'll come over here, we'll compile it, and then we'll run it. And so we just need to specify the name of the file that we want to write to, which is going to be this hello.txt file. We've now established our connection to that file so we can write to it. And we'll just go ahead and enter some text to write to the file. So we'll say something like hello world and then an exclamation point, push enter. So we don't get any errors when we do that. And so now, if the file correctly closed in the background after we finished all this, then the expectation is that this code or this text that we specified was successfully written to that file. If we run into an issue where the file did not close properly, then what's going to happen is this text that we wrote is going to be stored in a temporary buffer kind of between our Java file and the text file. But if we don't close it, it's going to be stuck in that buffer and be lost, which means that it wouldn't be written to the file. So basically the question is, was this actually written to the file or not? And that's going to address whether or not the file was actually closed. So if we come over here and we go look at our hello.txt file, we can see the text has been written to it. It's also added a new line character at the very end, hence why I've got two of them. So we can see that the text was successfully written to the file, indicating that the file was actually closed in the background. Okay. All right, so this is going to wrap up everything for my for this example with try with resources. Going into the next video, the next thing I want to take a look at related to our try catch blocks, we're going to talk about two different concepts. One of these is going to be dealing with being able to use several of these catch blocks with a single try, as well as talking a little bit more about the concept of polymorphism and how that relates to using multiple exceptions. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about a multi-catch, in which we can use several of these exceptions within a single catch.